and then having fruit as snacks throughout the day, and you can have some small side salads or a big salad, with lunch, and then getting something for dinner that's hearty, like squash or potatoes or lentils or beans or chili or soup or stew or stir fry. And that's where you can add in all these things like tofu and asparagus and kale and carrots and broccoli and cauliflower and beans of all different types and all those different things. If that's the foundation of the diet, that's how you're going to reach your calorie intake needs, your protein intake needs, your vitamin mineral intake needs, and all of that. And there's still room for that vegan ice cream or whatever it is that's your thing. Whatever it is that you're craving, that's considered typically more of a junk food. There's room for it if the foundation of the diet is whole food, plant-based. And so the only way you're going to know that is by documenting it for a little while. And I know because here's a few examples. I've been doing this thing now a little bit over 27 years as a plant-based athlete. And I've gone up and down in all types of different sports, from being a champion endurance athlete to champion bodybuilder, retiring from bodybuilding, going back to endurance running, becoming a champion runner again, even after being a champion bodybuilder, and then going back into weightlifting and having control along the way, manipulating muscle growth and fat burning. And for example, here's how this plays out in just regular everyday life. So when I'm at home and doing my thing, working from the computer, eating meals at home, having a lot of control over it, I will eat about 3,000 calories per day, just about exactly what I expend, which is why I stay around the same 200, 205 pounds all the time. But I notice in my food journal that when friends come to town and we go out and have a bunch of vegan pizza and calzones and maybe soda or whatever is consumed at that type of restaurant, through my documentation, I would notice that, that day, that Friday night or Saturday night or whatever it was, my calorie intake went to 4,500. So I had a surplus of 1,500 calories in a single day. And that's going to carry over for multiple days and add up to my weekly total and all that. And that wasn't a huge deal for me because I knew, okay, Robert, the next day, just go hike for, 90 minutes and burn a bunch of extra calories. But for a lot of us, myself included, at numerous times throughout my life, we eat that significant surplus, that extra 1,000 calories every single day for weeks or months on end. And that's how we gain weight. We don't gain, 15 pounds overnight. That people talk about that freshman 15 in college or the COVID 15 or COVID 20 or whatever, the added weight that many of us experience. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen from one day. It happens from accumulation day after day after day after day of calorie surplus. Likewise, for those of us who burn a bunch of calories and lose weight relatively quickly, dropping 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30. I just saw a video of a vegan guy today who lost 74 pounds in 6 months doing the vegan gym program. These things happen through, again, the accumulation of daily activity. You're in a calorie deficit in that case, day after day after day after day. Of course, you lose weight over time. So that's how that works. And regarding the number one topic that gets asked around this area of plant-based nutrition, we've got to talk about protein. There's tons of studies about protein. I know Derek Treesize referenced a few of them, perhaps in his presentation and in the panel that I did a few days ago with Juliana Hever and Derek Treesize, who are both experts in this area. There are plenty of studies now. I've referenced them in my book and in articles that I've written, and many others have as well. Of course, is that when you put people on a plant-based diet or an omnivorous diet, as long as they're getting the same amount of total protein intake combined with their exercise schedule, their results are the same. They've done this study over and over on weight training men, on weight training women, on lesser experienced athletes, more experienced athletes. The studies are out there now that show unequivocally that to our bodies, the amino acids are amino acids, right? Those are the building blocks of proteins. It's the amino acids that we need. So the amino acids come in the original form from plants. We often eat them through animal flesh, but we can also go to the original source and just eat them from plants. And those amino acids work together and build protein and help us with all the functions that protein does, which is maintaining our skeletal muscle, building and repairing muscle tissue, helping with our skin and bones and tendons and hair and hormone function and all this great stuff that protein does. Largely, building our muscle mass and protecting our muscle mass and repairing our muscle mass after exercise. So how much of this stuff do we need and where do we get it? Well, for most of us who are not very active, 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight is all we need. And that comes out to like 50 or 60 grams of protein per day for most women, maybe 60 to 70 grams of protein a day for most men. Now that's for inactive people. Very easy to reach because of the breakdown. 4 calories per gram of protein, 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate, 9 calories per gram of fat, 7 calories per gram of alcohol. Based on the totality of our food intake, if you eat any kind of diversity whatsoever, if you reach your calorie intake needs, you will reach your protein intake needs. That's the thing that I've been talking about seemingly for decades, that we don't need to obsess about protein consumption, one particular macronutrient, when most of us already get enough of it. Most of us already get enough protein, because to reach those numbers, 50, 60, 70 grams a day, it is so easy to do. That's not, that we all do it. Most people, including almost everyone listening here, perhaps, has probably never met anybody in real life with a real clinical protein deficiency. It typically doesn't happen, except for starving populations and people with eating disorders, and those maybe living in food deserts or just don't have access to adequate calories for whatever reason, economic challenges, regional location challenges, other restrictions that prevent proper access to food. Those are really some of the only ways you'll get a real clinical assessment. Okay, this person is suffering from protein deficiency, which is typically a byproduct of calorie deficiency, or some sort of eating disorder where the food is just not being totally digested or consumed, and not in adequate amounts. But everybody here knows more people than you can probably count who eat too much protein, have an excess protein intake. We see it because we wear it. It's just excess calories, excess body fat. We're seeking all this extra protein. We load up on the high protein foods, meat and other animal protein. And what comes with that? What comes with that are tons of oils and processed breads and sauces and dips and mayonnaise and salt and all the things that come in those packages, whether it's a burger, a sandwich, pizza, meatloaf, whatever it is. And so we have to look at how we consume this protein. And for many people who do consume animal protein, what they're getting is a whole lot of extra fat, a lot of extra calories, a lot of extra dietary cholesterol, all these things. And that adds up. And that adds up to this calorie intake that is now 4,000 calories a day, 5,000 calories a day. And we wonder why we can't lose weight, but we've reached our protein intake goals, right? There's also a lot of harmful components often that come along with the baggage with the types of proteins that we consume. It might be class 1 or class 2A carcinogen, as in the case of red meat and processed meats. It could be lots of extra dietary cholesterol, the Achilles heel of the American diet. It could be just tons of excess calories, or things that damage endothelial cells and create a more likely increase of plaque buildup in arteries, restricting blood flow and possibly leading us closer to a cardiac event. So we have to look at, what are the sources of the protein intake? And when we go with that animal protein intake route, of course, we're not consuming fiber, which is only found in plants, and 97% of Americans don't consume enough fiber. So at the moment, largely, in many cases, not exclusively, but in many cases, in a quest to consume more protein, we've ended up with a society, at least currently in the US, with 73.6% of Americans being overweight and 42.5% being obese. And that is not to body shame anyone, of course. That's to sound the alarm that this excess calorie intake and lack of activity, and typically the nature of those calories in excess, are very likely leading us down a path where we might be closer to a cardiac event, or contracting type 2 diabetes, or hypertension, or the other consequences of obesity, joint pain, fatigue, all these types of things, damaged arteries, you name it. So what we need to look at is that our protein intake needs are pretty low, 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But for active people, athletes, let's say, or very active people, those protein intake needs go up quite a bit. They go to about 1.2 to 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So they're nearly double the 0.8 to 1.2, going all the way to 2.0. And so now you're talking about a protein intake need for very active people who are running, cycling, weightlifting, playing team sports 3, 4, 5, 6 days a week. Now you're looking at closer to like 100 grams of protein per day, which is still very easy to attain. In fact, that's about the very high end of what I consume on a daily basis. I consume mostly 70 or 80, 90 grams of protein a day as a 200-pound or 205-pound male who trains 4 or 5 days a week with resistance weight training. And so it's very, very easy to reach those protein intake needs and intake goals. And so the way you do that is by without using supplementation, without using protein powders and isolated proteins in supplement form, is that you look at the more protein-rich foods, things like soy foods, tofu, edamame, tempeh, soy milk, those types of foods. Fantastic food for protein and for building muscle and fighting off disease and helping healthy heart and even preventing certain types of cancers, or at least fighting against those certain types of cancers. In research, soy is one of the best things that we can consume. It really is for just health, wellness, muscle building, maintaining muscle structure, and all of that. So incorporating those types of foods, other legumes, other types of beans of all types. Yes, beans are still mostly carbohydrate, but they're also very closely related to longevity and health and wellness, and they're decent source of protein as well. Same with nuts and seeds and nut butters and seed butters. Yes, they're primarily fat, but they're a good source of protein too. So you have to recognize that and not have too much of them because of the fat content, but also understanding that sprinkling walnuts on your oatmeal for the omega-3 and 6 essential fatty acids and for the extra calorie boost, or putting nut butter on apple slices or other fruit slices or vegetables, or putting them in a smoothie, or having nuts as a snack, something like that is another way to boost protein intake throughout the day. Certain leafy green vegetables are a decent source of protein, as are certain foods like pseudo grains like quinoa, or even seeds like hemp seeds or chia seeds, which you can put into a smoothie bowl, on a salad, sprinkle onto other food. Easy ways to incorporate this, and just understanding that every food, no matter what it is, mango, oranges, cucumbers, they all have amino acids, the building blocks of protein. Some just have larger amounts than others. So with the whole holistic approach, the diversity of all the nutrition you consume every day, all those amino acids pool together and form the protein and get you the protein that you need throughout the day. And so in my experience, doing this for decades and as a bodybuilder and as an athlete and as a weightlifter and all of that, and doing it for the last decade without sports supplements, yes, it can easily be done on a whole food plant-based diet or a mostly whole food plant-based diet with some processed foods in there as well, like sandwiches, wraps, burritos, all those different types of things. And I do incorporate those. I had a couple sandwiches yesterday, for example, while I was traveling out here in Oregon. And so all of that combined easily helps you reach your protein intake goals. And so just keep that in mind. Keep those numbers in mind, what your true protein requirements are, the different types of sources of protein, and the fact that if you reach your calorie intake goals, you should by default reach your protein intake goals as well. So people were asking about the calculator, it's Harris-Benedict calculator. So it's Harris-Benedict calculator. I've been using it for over a decade. I wrote about it in my book, Shred It, which helped a lot of people understand this a lot better. I wrote about it in Plant-Based Muscle, and I wrote about it again in the Plant-Based Athlete, because that's the starting point. So using the Harris-Benedict calculator, gender, age, height, weight, and activity level, how many calories are you actually burning? Once you know that, then you use Chronometer or MyFitnessPal and track what you eat during the day. You say, oh, wow, those don't match up at all. No wonder I can't lose any weight. I've tried for years and years. No wonder it didn't work. Or no wonder I was trying to build muscle and I thought maybe it was just my genetics. I couldn't do it. I was born to be a runner, not a weightlifter. I'm not built like a football player or whatever. You can change that. Certain things, genetic structure, you're not gonna be able to change, but I certainly didn't imagine when I was 89 pounds in 8th grade that I could be a 220 pound champion bodybuilder, lifting some pretty heavy weights. But that happened over time through adaptation and being able to manipulate and change my physique over time. Nor did I think that after being 200 pounds or so that I could drop down and be a champion distance runner again at 160 pounds, but I was able to do that too. And obviously I'm just one person. There's millions of people do this all the time, having control over their outcome. So let's talk about, I was going to talk about supplementation. Maybe I'll quickly, I think most of you know the calorie density and nutrient density. I'll just really quickly go over that because we're still talking about meal plans and putting foods together. This is, to me, just incredibly helpful and super useful. And I think about it a lot. So you're probably familiar with the calorie density scale and how many calories per pound or per cup or per unit. I use per pound. It just seems to be the easiest. So just really quickly, quick overview. On one end of the spectrum, you get leafy green vegetables that are about 60 to 100 calories per pound. We'll just say 100, round up. So 100 calories per pound for leafy greens. Is that a lot or little? It's not very many at all. On the other end of the spectrum, oil and pure fats are 4,000 calories per pound, so 40-fold. So what does that mean in real life? So if you have a bowl of salad and you cover it with an oily dressing, you're eating a food that's probably 80 to 90% fat. It's a 90% fatty food, your salad, more than a pizza, more than a burger, more than most foods we consider junk food, because of the amount of calories that are coming from fat. Your salad is only going to be a very small amount of calories, 50 calories, 40 calories in the whole thing, but then hundreds of calories perhaps of oil in your salad. Now you have this 90% fatty food, and we think of it as a health food. Oftentimes, look, I ate a salad today. And yes, there's some benefits obviously to the eating the leafy greens and all that, but that's sometimes how we get a little bit tricked or we fool ourselves, where it didn't really add up the way that we hoped. We gave ourselves a pat on the back for eating a salad. And many of my omnivorous friends, for example, will have like ranch dressing, chicken, Parmesan, and they're eating this healthy salad. So they think, but the calories are through the roof. The cholesterol is high. The fat is high. The animal protein is high. The artery damaging, artery clogging material is high. And they just got a few calories from the leafy greens and from the plants. It's primarily 90% of the calories from the ranch and the chicken and the cheese. And so we got to look at it that way. Along this scale, 200 calories per pound over here for vegetables. So leafy greens are 100, but most cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, foods like that, most common vegetables, carrots, etc., be about 200 calories per pound. On the other end, you have nuts and seeds at 2,800 calories per pound. Okay, so significant difference there. And so that's why we try to limit nuts and seeds and nut butters and seed butters to some degree, because they are so calorie dense. I mean, after oil, they're pretty much as rich as you can get in calories, because then you move over to 300 calories per pound in fruits, and then you go to junk food, pastries, donuts, cakes, candy, whatever. On average is about 2,300 calories per pound. And remember, that's the kind of food that fuels America. That's the American diet, or the Western diet, is junk food. It just is. I don't care how much fruit you eat, how many salads you're eating, how many leafy greens. It matters where the calories come from. And junk food is so calorie dense. Soda, anything boxed and packaged and preserved and covered in oil and all that stuff, all restaurant food, most things we consider as hearty meals, anything, crackers, chips, packaged goods, that's all in that category of junk food. And that is the foundation of the American diet. It's not vegetables, not fruit, it's not even meat. It's not meat, milk, and eggs. That's part of it. But what we call junk food or highly processed foods or refined carbohydrates are, in that category as well. Very, very, very calorie dense. And then you get to food like potatoes and oats and rice and beans and all that. They're 350 to 500 calories per pound. We'll kind of lump them together at 500 calories per pound. This, to me, is the ideal category.